Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at Shadows Over Camelot. Shadows Over Camelot is a semi-cooperative game based on the Arthurian legend. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks. This is Shadows Over Camelot, set up for a 5-player game. To set up, you deal each player randomly a coat of arms, and they're going to take their corresponding figure and place it on the designated space of the round table. Also, they're going to take a die and put it with the 4 showing. No matter who you are, you always start with 4 health in the game, and you put that on your coat of arms like so. And then you're going to shuffle all the loyalty cards face down and deal 1 to each player. They can look at it secretly if it's a 4 or more player game. In a 3-player game, you actually have to wait to look at it until there's at least 6 swords on the board. Aside from that, you give each player a Merlin card, then you're just going to shuffle up the remaining white cards and deal each player a hand of 5 like so. Then players are going to take one of the white cards from their hand and lay them face out on the board, and everybody's going to decide as a group who should get what cards. It's possible that one player gets multiple cards and some get none, but if players can't decide, you also just shuffle them up and you re-deal them out to the players like so. And lastly, you just shuffle up the black cards and make a supply of the Picks, Saxons, Siege Engine swords nearby that everybody can access. During the game, players take turns in clockwise order composed of 2 phases, which are progression of evil and heroic actions. The game ends immediately in defeat if there's ever 12 siege engines in front of Camelot or 7 black swords showing on the round table. It also ends immediately if all of the loyal knights are slain. Alternatively, the game ends at the end of an action when there's 12 or more swords on the round table. At that point, if most of the swords are white, the loyal knights win. Otherwise, the traitor and the game win. Before we get into a more detailed breakdown of the turn, I want to point out that players are allowed to collaborate in the game, but they can't say specifically what's in their hand. For instance, they could not say they have a fate card, or they could not say, I have a 5 fight value. They could certainly say, I am ready to fight the Saxons this turn, or something like that, but they can't discuss specifically the values or types of cards in their hands. So with that, the first part of a player's turn is the progression of evil phase, and they have to choose one of 3 evils. The 3 possible choices are to play a siege engine, to lose a health, or to draw a black card. If a player chooses to add a siege engine, they just take one of the siege engines from the supply and put it in front of Camelot. If there's ever 12 siege engines in front of Camelot, the loyal knights lose immediately. Alternatively, a player can choose to lose a life, and if they do that, they just take their die and they rotate it down to the next value. So 4 would go to 3 in this example. If a player ever runs out of health, they are immediately eliminated from the game, at which point they just discard all their cards face down. All discards are face down in this game, but they do not reveal their loyalty card. So they're going to keep that a secret until the end of the game. Also, if they have any relics, those will be lost at that time as well. And your third choice is to draw and play the top black card of the deck. There's 2 types of cards. There's special cards, which have this symbol on them, and then there's just all the other cards that are standard black cards. If you do play a special card, you just play it face up and you resolve its effect, but players can prevent the effect by cumulatively discarding 3 Merlin cards. They can come from one player or a combination of players, but if they discard those Merlin cards, the effect does not come into play. But after you play cards, you always discard them face down in this game in 2 separate discards, one for the white, one for the black. If you draw a standard black card, however, you just play it on the indicated space of the board. So for instance, this Despair would go on the Grail quest, and you would do what it says there. Most of the standard black cards are just played face up on the indicated quest. However, if you have Lancelot, the Dragon, or the Black Knight cards, you can play them face down on the corresponding space. Nobody will know what the value of the card is, but you do get to draw the top white card of the deck in that case. I also want to point out that if you ever draw a standard black card and you cannot play it because the quest is already complete, like for instance, Excalibur has already been earned, you're instead going to place a siege engine in front of Camelot and discard the card. It's also possible that playing a standard black card completes one of the quests on the board. We'll get into that in more detail later, but all the information can be found in the book of quests that comes with the game. The only other thing to note here is that if either deck runs out, you immediately reshuffle it and all its discards, as well as the other deck. So if the black deck runs out, you reshuffle it to form a new one, but you also reshuffle the white cards with their discards to form a new one. They always form new decks at the same time. So after you progress evil, you move on to the heroic actions part of your turn, during which you must take one of 5 possible heroic actions, which are move to a new quest, perform a quest action, play a special white card, heal yourself, or make an accusation. If you choose to move to a new quest, you just move to any available space on the board. You'll see most of the quests allow for all 7, but these 2 right here, Lancelot and the Dragon and the Dark Knight, only have space for 1 hero. So if that's full, nobody can go there. I also want to point out that this space and this one right here, Camelot, the Round Table, and the Siege Engines count as the same location, so you can move freely between these 2 here. But otherwise, you can go wherever you want. There's no adjacency rule or anything like that, so I could go right from here to Excalibur, for instance. Your next possible action is to perform a quest action. You have to be on the quest in order to perform an action there, but the different quests have different requirements. We're going to start over here. So if you're ever at the round table, you can just draw 2 cards from the white deck as long as you have 12 or less cards in your hand. There is no hand limit. You just can't draw if you already have 12 cards in your hand. If you're here in Camelot, you can discard any number of fight cards from your hand, and you just add up the total. So for instance, if I discarded a 1 and a 2, that would be worth 3, and then I'm going to roll the 8-sided die. If my total number of discards is more than the value of the dice I roll, I'm going to get to destroy one of these siege engines. But if the die roll is equal to or greater than the sum of all the fight cards I play, I'm actually not going to destroy a siege engine, and I'm going to lose 1 life. But in either case, I'm going to discard my cards face down after doing this. If I'm on the Black Knight or Lancelot and the Dragon, I just play 1 fight card from my hand face up in one of the indicated spaces. I also want to point out that this has to be 2 cards of exactly the same value, and this has to be 2 cards of exactly the same value. That's different from this one, and this one works the same way except a 3 of a kind and a 2 of a kind. And you must perform 1 heroic action during your turn. That means theoretically, if this was a 2 and this was a 1 and you only had 3s in your hand, you might have to move for your turn because you can't perform the action here because you can't put a 3 with this 2 or a 3 with this 1 because they have to be the same value. But all you do at either of these spaces is you just play 1 card on the indicated spaces. I also want to point out that in either of these quests, if all the black cards or all the white card slots are ever filled, the quest ends immediately and you just sum up the value. Also remember, if any of the black cards are face down, you got to shuffle them up first so you don't get to know who put what where before you sum them up. Next is Excalibur, and on Excalibur you discard any white card from your hand face down. Doesn't matter what it is, but if you do that, you just move Excalibur 1 place closer to you. The Excalibur quest is completed if Excalibur ever reaches either side of the board here. If he reaches all the way over here, you get Excalibur and you've completed the quest. But you can also lose the quest if he reaches up here, and the corresponding win and loss conditions are along the top as well as in the book of quests. Next is the Holy Grail quest, and all you do there is you play a Holy Grail card on the first empty space. If all the spaces are filled, some of them may be filled by black cards, you instead remove the black card and just discard the Holy Grail card you would have played face down. If you ever fill up the Holy Grail entirely with black cards or white cards, you either win or lose depending what color the cards, and you get the Grail and the corresponding reward or penalty. And lastly are the Saxons and the Picks, and all you do there is you have to play a card 1 to 5. You must play in that order. So if you're going to be on the Saxon space, for instance, you must first play a 1. But if you get all the way up to 5 before 4 Saxons or 4 Picks come out on the board, you've won. But if they come out first, you've lost. And then there's corresponding rewards and penalties associated with that. I also want to point out that these are recurring quests, and once these are done, they're totally done. If you ever finish Lancelot, you're going to flip it over and it's going to become the dragon. It's the only one like that. But some of the quests can be totally finished, but some of them recur during the game. And the complete information, again, is found in the Book of Quests. So that brings us to our third possible action, which is playing a special white card. And you can identify the special white cards by the symbol there. You're just going to play them face up, do what they say, and then discard them face down as normal. The next thing you could do is you can discard 3 identical cards. I want to point out that if you're discarding fight cards, they must be exactly identical, so they would all have to be 1s, and then you just regain 1 health. And it is possible to go above 4 health. You can go all the way up to 6, but never above 6, and that's just represented by this die. And that brings us to the 5th possible action, which is making an accusation. This can only be performed when there are 6 or more siege engines on the board or 6 or more swords in the round table. So this isn't immediately available, and each player may only perform this action once per game. All you do is point at another player and accuse them of being the traitor, and you're going to reveal their loyalty card. If the accused player is not the traitor, you're going to have to turn a white sword on the round table over to the dark side, if there is a white sword. If there's no white sword, you don't have to do it, however. If the accused player is the traitor, you get to add a new white sword to the round table, and then you're going to flip over their coat of arms. They're going to have to discard all their cards and any relics they have except the Lancelot's armor, which they actually could keep. And now their turn's going to work a little bit differently. Instead of taking the 2 phases like the other players, they're first going to grab a white card at random from other players and discard it, and then they can either add a siege engine or draw and reveal the top black card. So they're going to play a little bit differently for the rest of the game, but they're no longer on the board, and they can no longer take heroic actions. So those are the 5 possible actions. It is also possible for a player to sacrifice a health to perform a second action, but a player can never perform the same action twice in a turn. For instance, if a player plays a special white card, they can't sacrifice a health and then play another special white card, but they could sacrifice a health and do a different action. It's also possible to do this when you only have 1 health left, in which case you get to take the next action, but then you're going to die immediately after it. So the game proceeds with players taking turns in clockwise order just like that, but the game ends immediately if there's ever 12 siege engines out here, or 7 black swords, or if all the loyal knights are slain. Alternatively, the game ends at the end of an action when there's 12 or more swords on the round table. It's possible that the last action caused more than 1 sword to be placed there, so there could be 13 or 14 or however many. At that point, if the traitor is still alive and undetected, he or she should reveal his loyalty card and flip 2 white swords over to the black side. And finally, if there's more white swords than black swords in the round table, the loyal knights win. Let's get going with this example playthrough. Normally players' hands will be for their eyes only, but they're put face up here to make it easy to see. We've also revealed the loyalty cards, which you should never do. And there actually is a traitor. Sometimes there's not. And it's King Arthur, which is not great. So everybody's put their card in the middle. These are kind of a selfish group, and they're going to decide how to distribute them amongst themselves. This guy says he doesn't really want any of the cards. This guy would really like a 1, and everybody says, okay, that's great. We'll give him a 1. That'll make him happy. This guy over here says he doesn't really want any cards either, and this guy says he would like a 2. So people decide, you know, we're going to give him both of these 2s, and then Arthur is just so important, we're going to give him these other 2 1s. So some people sacrifice their ability to get cards, unknowingly giving extra cards to the traitor. So King Arthur always goes first if he's in the game. He is in the game, so he's going to go first. So he's going to begin by progressing evil. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to take a siege engine. He's going to place it out here. And for his heroic action, he has to decide what he wants to do. He could move somewhere, or he could just quest right where he is by drawing 2 cards. And that's exactly what he's going to do, because he has less than 12 cards in hand, so he's going to draw 2 and add them to his hand. Arthur also has a special ability that he can give another player a card, and that player has to give him 1 back. So he decides he's going to do that. They do this face down, of course, because everything in this game is secretive and face down. And he picks the guy right next to him, which is Sir Kay. So Sir Kay and him have to exchange cards. Sir Kay really didn't want to do this, but he does. So he ends up giving Arthur a 2, and he takes a 1 in exchange, and he's a little confused by that because of the conversation they all just had. So Arthur's done 1 good thing and 1 bad thing. So now we move clockwise to Sir Kay, and he takes his turn as well. So first thing he has to do is 1 negative thing. So for his negative thing, he's so honorable, he decides he's just going to lose a health. And then for his heroic action, he decides to charge right on over here to Lancelot. Now he can't actually take any actions there because moving was the action for him. We're going to jump ahead a little bit later in the game so you can see some more interesting situations. Welcome back. We'll progress a little bit in the game. It is now Sir Tristan's turn, and first he has to do a evil act. He's going to draw and play the top black card of the deck. It's this card, which says it goes here and you discard one of the Grail cards on the quest. So we do that, and of course the discards are face down. Now for his actual turn, he's going to perform a quest here, which is to play this white card here. Now because all of these white spaces are filled, this quest is over. So we're going to sum these. 4 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1 is 10. And the black card was actually a 3, and it's the only one there. So obviously the Loyal Knights have won this quest. So for winning, they get 1 white sword, 3 cards, and he gains 1 health. I also want to point out that whenever you're on a quest and it's over, even if you're not the one who ended it, you immediately go back to Camelot. So he does that now. It doesn't cost an action to move back, and all these cards are going to be discarded after he takes the winnings. We're going to move ahead a little bit later in the game so you can see some more things happen. Welcome back. We progressed quite a bit in the game. It's now Sir Kay's turn, and because he has Lancelot's armor, if he chooses to draw black cards as his evil progression action, he actually gets to draw 2 and choose 1. That's what he's going to do. They're both Lancelot or the dragon cards, so he's going to put one of them face down here. He could put it face up, but if he puts it face down, he gets to draw a white card, which is why he did it. Now, because this is totally full, we would normally shuffle up the face down cards, and then we're going to add all the black together and add all the white together. But since there's no white, we're pretty sure that the evil side is going to win. So the evil side winning, we add 2 black swords to this area here, which is what we're going to do. And then if anybody was present here, they would lose 2 health. Now for his heroic action, he decides that he's going to fight some of these siege engines here. He's going to discard a 5 and a 4, which totals 9. So that way, even if he rolls an 8, he'll still win, but he rolls a 4. So that's 5 plus 4 is 9. It's greater than 4, so we know he defeats that from the area. Now we're going to go into the next guy's turn, and Sir Galahad, as his evil action, is going to draw a card. He's also going to put it face down, and unfortunately for him, we're in a similar situation. He put it face down, of course, so he could draw. But again, the good guys are going to lose this, and that adds 1 dark sword to the round table here. So for his heroic action, he's going to accuse Arthur. Now, if Arthur is in fact a traitor, which now we're going to reveal he is, he's going to discard all of his cards and lose all of his relics, which he doesn't have, but then he's going to switch over to the traitor side of his board, and his turns are going to resolve a little bit differently. Also, because Galahad correctly identified the traitor, we're going to get to put 1 white sword out here. So the game's going to proceed. We'll jump back at the end of the game so you can see the final situation. Welcome back. We've reached the end of the game. Sir Palamedes unfortunately has perished in the process, but it's now Sir Tristan's turn, and for his evil progression action, he decides he's going to draw a black card since losing a health would kill him and putting a siege engine would end the game. Unfortunately for him, the black card is a special black card that says each knight loses 1 health, and because they don't have any Merlin cards in hand, remember, they could discard 3 Merlins to cancel that from happening. They are all going to die simultaneously, making the traitor the winner. I also want to point out that if it reached the end here, we would have to first see how many white versus how many black. If there were more white than more black in the round table, if it ever filled up, the Loyal Knights would win. Otherwise, they would lose. But as it stands, that's the game. The traitor, King Arthur, has won. Shadows Over Camelot is a neat game. I really enjoyed the theme, King Arthur, and I really like speaking in a British accent, just to get into it. Maybe some Monty Python references here or there. I wouldn't really recommend this game below 5 players, though, or if you do play below 5, I would recommend not having a trader, especially early on, just because the trader gets so many turns. It's a little bit hard to overtake them. But with 5 plus, it's a lot of fun, and I like to actually do it as described in the rules. Some people like to always have a trader, but I like the possibility of no trader because it just adds that kind of neat element. When I'm a trader, I always end up revealing myself really early, but some people like to be a little bit sneaky and flip those 2 swords at the end, which can be quite devastating. The game is a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend it for, family type of settings, although it's a little harder maybe for small kids, but it's not really like a hardcore strategy, calculate what you got to do type of thing. You're just basically working together as a team, although you got to keep a lot of secret information from them. Sometimes you got to do things you may or may not want to do. So that's Shadows Over Camelot. If it looked neat to you, check it out.